Time for another edition of the Improbability Engine's After Show, and today we're talking about the greatest sitcoms ever, and I'm going to let Joe start.
If you talk about the greatest sitcoms ever, you have a lot of criteria to work with. For me, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I look at some of those shows from that time frame, and I have to say, you've got something like Seinfeld. Seinfeld is one of those shows. It's famous because it's a show about nothing. The writers have gone on and have been massively successful doing other shows. The characters are still iconic today. I've watched reruns of Seinfeld. It's still just as funny as it was when it first aired. Amazing show, great cast. Storylines are fantastic, and if you don't have Seinfeld on your list of greatest sitcoms of all time, quit making lists where you talk about things you don't know anything about.
I agree with all of that. I love the Frogger episode. Yeah. And I loved playing Frogger back in the 70s. But
the best part about Seinfeld is whenever you get the little snippets that are only tangentially related to the story. When Kramer's calling Jerry, he's like, "Jerry, I'm on the corner of 1st Street and 1st Avenue. I'm at the nexus of the universe, Jerry." Just a fantastic, the Kenny Rogers Roasters or the no bagel, no bagel, no bagel, no bagel, whenever he's on strike. Just a fantastic show.
The other day on Netflix, I watched the first episode of the first season of the Andy Griffith Show. I don't know that I've ever laughed so hard in my life. I laughed so hard that I cried. And in that episode, at the beginning, there is no Aunt B.
Right.
Opie had been taken care of by a housekeeper whose name was Rose. And Rose is getting married. And so Rose is leaving, and Opie's all upset over that. And so Aunt B comes, and she takes care of Opie. But Opie's still torn up over losing Rose, and he's not willing to accept Aunt B. And so Andy decides, well, let's see if she can do some of the things that you like. And so he tries to have Aunt B play baseball with Opie and tries to take her fishing and things like that. And all through it, it's hilarious. Opie doesn't take up with her, and so at the end, she decides that she's going to go back home. She's going to leave. And so she's taking her suitcase to the car, and Opie's looking out the window. And Opie sees that she's leaving. So he runs downstairs and runs out and says, "You can't leave. You can't leave." And so Andy says, "But I didn't think, you wanted her to stay, Ope." And he says, "Paul, she can't take care of herself. She can't fish. She can't catch frogs. She can't play ball. What'll happen to her?"
One of the greatest shows of all times, and this idea of Mayberry is one that I think a lot of people they yearn for the simplicity of it. It's that small town feel, and quite frankly, Barney and Andy are perfect together.
Amen.
I mean, they're perfect together. And one of the things that the big development in that first season of Andy Griffith was, at first Barney was Andy's cousin, and I think they still are later on, but they downplay that later on. Andy comes in as the comedian. It's his show. He's the comedian.
Right.
And
he had been a stand-up comic.
And a lot of the first show was based around some of his comedy. And Barney was supposed to come in and be the foil on a lot of things. Well, what they found out was that Andy worked much better as the straight man and let Barney be, this is a testament to how great of a creative person Andy Griffith was. He said, "You know what? I know I'm funny. We're gonna let Barney Fife be the comedic drive in this. I'll play the straight man." And that's what happens in the development of the program. The best part about it is you've still got, the great timing and hilarious premises and all the stuff that goes in, and you watch this, it can be it can be laughed off as saying, well, it's a fictionalized, it's 1960s television. It's oversimplified. It's kind of, blasé about a lot of stuff. But what was really telling to me was the way those characters developed and how they went through, and bringing in Thelma Lou and bringing in, these off the wall characters outside of Mayberry that you get, just fantastic, and really just a very funny show. I mean, just a fantastically funny show.
What do you got?
Okay, my next one is one you've probably never seen. But if you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing it. It's called The IT Crowd. Now, this is a British comedy about the IT department of a major company. And they are standard nerds. That's kind of the joke. So these two guys, Roy and Maurice, are socially inept. They have no clue, but they're computer geniuses. And they need a new boss. In comes Jen, who is not socially inept, but doesn't know anything about computers. And she becomes the head of the IT department. It works so well together. It's Chris O'Dowd and Richard Ayoade, and you have it's just absolutely awesome. Anybody who knows anything about, you don't have to know much about computers. Anybody who knows anything about people who know about computers will enjoy this movie. Or the show. It's fantastic. Watch it. It's hilarious.
One of my all-time favorites. They only made 6 episodes of it because no one but me liked it. And I would laugh from the beginning of this show to the end of this show. Aliens in the Family. Now, there was a cartoon, Aliens in the Family. This is live action, Aliens in the Family. It lasted only 6 episodes. It was just flippin' hilarious. I loved that show. From the beginning with the theme song all through it. And why it only lasted 6 episodes, I just can't understand.
The premise seems airtight. I don't get it either. I mean, it should be pretty solid. There's a lot of shows that are like that, though, that just don't seem to catch the mainstream audience. My next one on my list is very similar to that. It's Arrested Development. Arrested Development is an ensemble sitcom that, quite frankly, might be the funniest television show the third time through any TV show you'll ever watch. The jokes are layered in such a way that you might not even get it the first time you watch it. You watch it again, and all of a sudden, it's hilarious for a completely different reason. That is so difficult to do, but so well acted. If you haven't watched Arrested Development, it's about the Bluth family who own the Bluth Company, which in the first episode is raided by the FBI for accounting malfeasance. And there's only one normal member of the Bluth family, and that's Michael. Everybody else is a little messed up. It is absolutely one of the most quote-worthy shows you'll ever watch. It is fantastic. There's just so many things. I don't even know where to begin with it.
Well, I've maybe seen 1 episode, so I don't really have anything to say about that. But my next one is The Beverly Hillbillies, which was awesome back in the day. 2 shows stand out to me. In one, Mr. Drysdale has sent actors dressed as Indians over to the Clampett's mansion. And so, anyway...
which only works in that show.
Yes, only works in that show. They're pretending to attack the mansion. Granny is shooting at them. Now, if this happened in real life, somebody would actually get killed. But in the context of the show,
so
it somehow worked. And of course, Jed's telling her not to worry, and so she turns to Jethro and she says, "He's a good man. He only has one blind spot: engines." But the best episode dealt with Gloria Swanson. And in this episode, they find out that Gloria Swanson's house is being sold. And for some reason, they get the idea that, she's hard up for money. So they go to see her. And they talk to Gloria Swanson, and she's there, and she has these tigers, as pets. Okay. Then on the day, they find out, as I said, that her house is being sold, and they get the idea that the county is selling the house to pay her debts, and so they show up, and Gloria Swanson is wearing a tiger coat, and so Jed says, I didn't know it was this bad. She had to kill her cats to make a coat.
Oh my God. So, there are some shows that they're timeless because you can suspend belief, can suspend disbelief for just a few minutes and watch. I think that's a great example. I mean, one of the ones I'm going to bring up in a minute is another example of that. But the one I want to make sure that I bring up now, How I Met Your Mother.
Great show.
Great show.
Awesome.
The premise is fantastic. The cast is fantastic.
I did one of those, which How I Met Your Mother character are you?
Oh, please, God, say you were Barney.
No.
Uh-oh.
No.
It was worth a try. That would have been funny.
No, not Ted either.
Oh. You're Marshall.
That's
There you
it.
go. That's how that has to work. No, that just a fun show. It makes up ludicrous stereotypes about Canadians, and that's okay because they're pretty nice about it. It's a fantastic show. One of the funnier shows that have come out in the past 20 years. To be honest with you, it's just really good.
And I'm going to refer to two scenes from that show. The first, I probably shouldn't, but too bad. It's our show. So obviously Ted was in love with Robin.
Right.
Anyway, they've broken up. She's got a new boyfriend.
Right.
And so her new boyfriend is awesome at everything.
Of course he is.
And so Ted's like, come on, he's got to be bad at something. Yeah, I got to be better than him at something. Come on, Robin, just give me something.
Right.
And she says, you're bigger. And he said, oh, this guy's 6'3".
He just doesn't get it at that point, yeah?
The other one is where Ted says, love is the best thing we do. And speaking about people.
Yeah.
And he's right.
No, and you're absolutely right. And there's been some consternation amongst fans about how the show ended. And
I
stuff
hated
like that.
the last episode.
You know what? I think I didn't like it at first either. I've watched it again. It's one of those that you just kind of keep in your Netflix queue and watch it. You can pick up any time, and you're okay because it's just a great show. It's one that I've grown to accept. It could have ended so many different ways. It really could have. But there's no good way to introduce the mother character in the last episode. If it had to be somebody that was there for a long time.
It could have been Robin.
It could have been Robin. It could have been. But, a fantastic show. A great cast, a lot of fun to watch. And you can't go past that. It was just really good stuff.
WKRP in Cincinnati.
The greatest WKRP in Cincinnati episode was the turkey drop.
It was awesome.
To this day, there is nothing more funny than the way the guy walks into the office and completely straight-faced looks around at people and says, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. It's the funniest show.
And for people who haven't seen
Oh,
it,
my
they
God.
decided a good promotion for the radio station would be to drop turkeys out of a helicopter
Right.
for people. And that's funny on so many levels because if turkeys had been able to fly, they would have just flown away and nobody would have gotten a turkey.
No, the best, Les Nesbitt, who's the mild-mannered, quiet kind of mousy guy is the one on the ground, and they're getting the report when they start dropping the turkeys, and it's Les Nesbitt's version of Oh the Humanity. It's this, oh my God, turkeys are flying, they're falling out of the sky, and people are running all over the place.
Well, and then he talks about the turkeys mounting a counterattack. It's like they were organized. But my favorite episode actually isn't.
Oh my God.
Actually isn't that one. It was when somebody was going to blow up the station, they thought. So Johnny and I believe it's Les go out to the transmitter. And then they find out that no, it's the transmitter that's going to be blown up. But Johnny and Les don't know this. And they're there. And so Johnny gets upset at a phone call, and he smashes the phone, and they leave. And Johnny's afraid the phone cops are going to get them. And then after they leave, they see the station blow up. And Johnny's like, those phone cops play hardball.
That's such a good show. Oh my gosh, it's such a good show. No, so the next one that I have, and quite honestly, there are 50 that I could name that are great. The one that I want to bring up now, though, is Cheers.
Awesome show.
I started watching Cheers. As a kid, I watched it sporadically because I was young and it came on near my bedtime, so I didn't get to watch it much. I started rewatching on Netflix, and it is one of the better shows of all time, without any kind of. Yeah, I mean you can't argue it. It's just a great show. The one thing that hurts it doesn't age well is that nobody really has a Boston accent. You ever notice that? Here's a bar in Boston, and nobody has a Boston accent. Aside from that, fantastic show. Sam Malone is a lovable Lothario who's, tries to get Diane, and then that doesn't work, and then you have, Frasier and Lilith, and it spawns another great show in Frasier, and it's just a fantastic show. The characters are wonderful, and quite frankly, maybe the best theme song of all.
Oh, the theme song's awesome.
The theme song's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those I want a place like that. I want to go and where everybody knows your name,
Here's what I want to do.
Okay.
I want to write a computer program that picks Cheers episodes from Netflix at random and plays them. Because I don't want to watch it in sequence from the very beginning.
I don't blame you. All you need to do is have a random number generator that picks a number 1 through 10 and then picks a number 1 through 15. And that'll tell you what season and what episode, and you can do it that way.
Yeah.
Takes the brain work out of it. Fantastic show. One of my favorite shows just because, it lasted forever. But it was the best show on television. I mean, it was the standard sitcom of the 1980s. It was the one that everything else kind of measured against.
And yet, I don't know that there's an iconic episode of it.
I don't either. I mean, it's... You could look at it and you could go through and say, when Sam and Diane are slapping each other.
Yeah.
That's an iconic moment. But it's one of those where what made it great was Norm! Or, some of the stuff that went on, I don't know. You got your two standard types of aardvark. And, that kind of stuff to me is more iconic. There's not one episode that really stands out. And I think that's... I don't know if that hurts it in the lexicon of comedic shows, but it's just a fantastic show. One more that I've got that I want to make sure that I mention. MASH. Another great show. Now this is a show that started in the 70s in the shadow of Vietnam, and in order to not talk about Vietnam, it takes place in Korea. And the show lasts longer than the actual Korean War, so, which I always thought was hilarious. You have these doctors whose, it reset the hospital drama. It took the hospital drama from Dr. Kildare and General Hospital type things, and it brought it to this point where, yeah, this is serious, this is important, this is big, but it can still be funny, and it can be poignant, and it can be, you can love the characters, and you can love the story, and it was a coming together moment for a generation of people that had a lot of trouble. Coming out of the 1960s, going to the 1970s, you didn't have war movies that you were okay with. Not everybody wanted to watch John Wayne at that point. You have this pushback and this counterculture that has kind of gone and said, you know what, no, this was wrong, we shouldn't have done this, versus the traditional, hey, this is our country, we need to support it no matter what. And somehow they both could watch MASH, and it was okay. Just a fantastic
Who do you like
show.
better as sidekick, Trapper John MD or BJ Honeycutt?
Oh, man. You know what? I like Trapper, but BJ to me was, I think, a more developed character. You have his story really take up some more of the flesh. You've got his daughter, Erin. You've got his wife, Peg. You've got this desire to be home with them, and it really makes him a more developed character, I think, than what Trapper was.
All right. I'm having a memory failure.
Okay.
There was Colonel Potter. Who's the other?
Oh,
commander?
Henry Blake.
Henry Blake. Colonel Blake. I like Colonel Blake.
Colonel Blake was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And what's really great about that whole story is Harry Morgan actually guest starred as a general who was losing his mind while Colonel Blake was still in charge. And I thought that was hilarious. At that point, I was like, oh, I get it now.
And McLean Stevenson was Colonel Blake.
Right, and Colonel Blake was fantastic. McLean
Yes.
Stevenson was awesome in that role. And to this day, one of the saddest television moments that I've ever experienced. And now, mind you, I didn't watch it in order. I didn't see this
Right.
in time. I saw it in a rerun. So it's, 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, I've always wondered, how they made the transition. And it was the episode where Colonel Blake was being shipped home, and his plane crashes. And to this day, one of the most devastating moments in a comedy that I've ever had, and just a fantastically written, fantastically executed television show. And frankly, the last episode is as iconic as almost any of them. It's one of those where, for a generation of folks, that was it. I mean, it was the show.
And finally, for me, I want to mention The Big Bang Theory.
Yes!
It's just such an awesome show, and I love the way they've developed the characters. And what a great way to end the last season with Sheldon proposing to Amy. I just thought that was awesome.
Absolutely. And what's amazing to me is, having watched the whole show, and I actually own the first 5-6 seasons of it, and
Can you believe it's like in its 10th season?
I know, it's crazy. What's funny is when I first started watching, I was like, this is a great premise. I don't know how long they're going to be able to run with this. You know what I mean? It's pretty cut and dry. Leonard likes Penny, and they're never going to end up together. It can't work. You're going to get to the point where it's just ludicrous. And instead, you get this really sweet love story come out of really strange circumstances. And, Sheldon goes from being a one-dimensional weirdo to being, he's a little different. You know what I mean? It's like I could almost see Sheldon being one of my friends, and whenever I introduce him to people, I'm like, look, this is the guy I was telling you about. He comes off as a little weird, but that's only because he is weird. So just kind of, let's just deal with it. It'll be okay. But you get that feeling of you have these guys. I've seen these guys before, or I've met guys kind of like this, or I've known people who remind me of Sheldon, or of Leonard, or of Penny, or of Bernadette. I mean, there's just so much that goes into that. it's really just a great show, and I am so glad it's still going and still running now. It's just exciting. It's a great television show.
I am too. I want Sheldon and Amy to get married. I think that would be awesome, and hopefully we get to see that this coming fall.
Yeah, I love those kind of shows where they were successfully able to go from it's a Leonard and Penny driven story to the other characters have their time to shine. And
Now,
I think that's awesome.
I will say this.
Yeah.
If there was a which Big Bang Theory character are you, I wouldn't want to be any of those characters.
Yeah, every single character on that show is inherently flawed. And I think that's their charm. Like none of them you can't look at any of them and go, "Oh, well, yeah, that's perfect." You know what I mean? Like even you look at Penny. Penny is Leonard's dream woman. She's beautiful. Oh my God, she's so beautiful. And she's not book smart, like at all.
Well,
but then she develops.
But to me, she was never the prettiest girl on the show. I mean, if I were one of those guys, I would have been after Bernadette. Howard is the one who picked the right girl.
Which doesn't make any sense because Howard is the least. I mean, you look at him, you go, "Oh God." Early on, Howard's just kind of a sleazy guy.
Yeah.
But he develops into this likable character. And, every time they make fun of him for not having a doctorate, it's hilarious because it's a guy who's got a master's in engineering. He's not an idiot, but in his circle, oh, bless your heart. What I mean? There's something really cool
Leonard's
about that.
probably the closest to normal. Of the
Yeah,
guys.
and he's got real bad mommy issues.
Yeah. Anything else?
We could go on and talk about it for so long. It's hard to say. There's so much you could talk about. I want everybody else's opinion. If you get a chance, hit me up on Twitter @RacerJoeD. Tell me what we missed. Lots of good sitcom. We didn't even get to like Archie Bunker or
You couldn't even do that show today.
No. Oh no. There's no. Well, you couldn't do Good Times today.
No.
You can't. The idea that it's a comedy allows you to take on some really challenging stuff.
Not anymore. I mean, look
Right.
at the trouble
Nowadays,
Bill
you
Maher
can't.
got into
Absolutely,
a month ago.
Yeah. You cannot. And part of that is understandable because part of the reason you do those things in comedy is to point out things that we shouldn't be proud of. You know what I mean? That's really the case that you've got in a lot of these comedies is pointing out what we're not proud of.
Okay. I write parody songs.
Of course you do.
And I wrote a parody song about immigrants, particularly Asian immigrants. And the song was meant to ridicule prejudice against them by making it absurd and over the top.
Yeah.
Okay? So
Little did you know that it'd be picked up as a party platform.
I sing the song to my mother-in-law, and she says, "Yeah, I agree with all of that." And I'm like, seriously?
No, that's not what you're
No,
supposed
the
to
point
do.
was to make it so absurd that anybody would see how offensive it is. But no.
It's the state of the world we live in now. And that's why everybody's hypersensitive because, on one side, you've got somebody wanting to say, well, you're just speaking your mind. It's okay if you say that. And in the back of other people's minds, it's like, no, we've struggled against this for so long. We risk going back because people actually still believe this. It's funny when you can look at something and poke fun of it. And then there's so much now that is real in so many people's lives that I don't know how comedy's going to make the next step.
Mm-hmm. And that brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.
Mrs. Brody. Ethan.
Hi, come on in. Have a seat. I'll call Heather. Heather! Ethan's here!
And, you must be Varch.
No, I'm Snizzy. Hi, Ethan.
Hey, Heather. Come here. Looking good.
Well, let me get my purse. Snizzy? Mom? Well, isn't he gorgeous?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's really cute.
Well, let me get my purse.
I didn't want to lie, Mom, but what could I say? He's hideously deformed.
Well, see you later. Bye. Okay, let's go.
Ethan?
What's wrong? RJ, my boyfriend!
Oh, jeez, this is gonna be a lawsuit.
Not to worry, Dad. It's a simple matter of extraction. Easy as pulling out a brain.
Heather, honey, I don't think you want to see this.
Well, there goes the prom.
Stay, Bud, stay.
Well, young man, looks like you've got a story to tell the grandkids.